Alright, the LaFond stuff continues. My brother's here pouring a drink. Of course, made famous by
William Moraley.
William Moraley. Now, we were talking about this. In the summer, we were making videos about Bombo, right? And we were talking about mixing rum with different kinds of beer and then other forms of alcohol. Now, this was all from the book, The Infortunate, by William Moraley, basically giving a view into what America really was like. This plantation, this colony, this commonwealth, whatever you want to call this place, in terms of the Philadelphia, New Jersey area. But you found this book. Let's talk about William Moraley and The Infortunate. Give us a background on the book, the situation, where you found the book.
I found the book in the best used bookstore I've been in. I forget what's called, the Book Rendezvous, I think, on the Alameda in San Jose, California, where I found a lot of decent history books there. Apparently, a lot of highly educated men have perished in recent years, and their children have sold off their books to this place.
Yeah, right.
I grabbed it. Actually, I didn't grab it. I saw it, and I was really weak at the time. I was hurt. I didn't think I could take another book with me, so I left it there. And it was still there a couple months later when I came back down to San Jose. It was titled The Infortunate, and the subtitle said William Moraley, Indentured Servant. And I knew that indentured servant was not a term that anybody used during the period. So I thought, wow, maybe this is going to tell me how this term came into use, because you never find it in any wanted ads or anything. Indentured servant was just not part of the nomenclature. So I buy the book, I take it back to my hotel room, and I open it up, and the actual title page is on the interior, and it didn't say indentured servant. Okay? It was something that the modern academics put there, and their footnotes were highly useful in some cases, but in most cases it was just them trying to disparage William and his account.
Really?
Yeah, the editors of this just had the knives out for William.
Now, this edition that you had, who printed it? Do you remember?
It was a university press.
Okay.
And there were notes in it from a student, but there were no notes down in the footnotes. And anything, the student mostly put their footnotes. The student mostly made their marker notes in the introduction, like the 30-page introduction, which should usually just be skipped in any reprint of a primary source. They did make some interesting marks later on in the text. And you could tell it was a young person that did it. It was kind of naive. But the footnotes, anything that the academics had to say that was worthwhile was really their citing of other sources.
Okay.
And this led me to two other sources that I've worked on since then. But William Moraley was a young man whose grandfather had been a Marshal of France.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it was a title that some British nobility had, and it had to do with claims to Calais, different things left over from the 100 Years' War. His father fell on hard times, got swindled in the South Sea bubble, which was pretty much like the 2008 housing bubble in the U.S., and he was trying to straighten out his finances. When his brother perished, he went to go settle his brother's finances. He died on the journey.
Oh, God. And
there was a very slim inheritance for William. His mother remarried, and the new husband, she married up, didn't want William's inheritance going to William. So William ends up getting talked into selling himself under false pretenses. The term was inveigled.
Inveigled.
So he is he's defrauded numerous times. His book is there's a very long subtitle, and it's addressed to the gentlemen of the law
Oh.
in the Newcastle area of northeastern England. He wrote this when he finally got back home after a lot of adventures. I won't go over any of those, but after his mother married a third time, she was doing okay. She had a house. The third husband had died.
Huh.
And he came home and reconciled with her after many adventures, which, even though he was somebody that had fallen out of the lower upper class, if he hadn't had over a dozen people just do him a good turn with no profit motive, then he wouldn't have made it to write his account. So when he is reconciled with his mother ends up dying, and the executors of her will swindle William out of her house.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so he's living with her down the street from his father's house, who has been boarded up for years, for a decade or more, and now he gets moved out of his mother's house. He's working the whole time. He worked as a watchmaker and a clock repairman and a clock cleaner. He was good at telling stories. He was literate. He was like an early modern Odysseus. So people liked having him living with them, and he would do things for them. So he writes this book in an effort to recommend himself to some upper class men of the law that might help him get his mother's house back in his name. It doesn't apparently end up working for him, but he doesn't die homeless on the street. He's able to have a bed in the house of somebody from his hometown.
He doesn't drink himself to death like Peter Williamson did.
No. So it seems like he'd done okay. He managed to continue making a living until his old years, and the local historic society that preserved one of the few copies, he paid to get this book published out of his earnings. As a promotional thing, there weren't very many copies. The local historical society preserved this, and there was a quote from the son of the man whose roof he eventually died under, that William was, a very likable fellow, and that he was a hard worker. Okay, and that he was
so he
was well remembered.
He was from like Newcastle. That's like way up in northern England.
Yes, he was from there, but his father moved the family down to London. Now, when he fell on hard times during the South Sea bubble, he had to liquidate what he had in London and move back up to Newcastle. Now, when his father perished, when he was out at sea, William ended up not being able to stay with his mother and work as a local, because his father had trained him in watchmaking.
He was a skilled laborer.
The stepfather didn't want it, so he's an artisan, really.
He's an artisan, right.
So he moved back to London and was engaged in trying to get some legal help at the time that he was inveigled. And he
ends up in Philly and South Jersey, Burlington.
Yes,
Trentown, as they say back then.
And he met some very interesting characters.
Yeah, the one in the story in the Pine Barrens. Was fascinating.
Had a Black Panther coming after him in the Jersey Pine Barrens, and then ends up being invited to dinner by a man in Trent Town, and the guy sells him to a slave catcher.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go.
And they were servants. They weren't slaves.
So in the footnotes of this book, the academics do me a good turn, because they mentioned the diary of John Harrower and the memoir of Israel Potter. And my I send this information to my editor, and she ends up providing me with documents that I can work with. And the Peter Williamson book that will come out is titled Ball of Fortune. It'll be on ebook probably pretty soon.
Oh, nice.
But I had every quote from him, I had to type manually out of that book because this thing's still owned by University Press, and they're not letting the PDF get out there so that my editor could rework it into an ODT file. That
Oh, what are they trying to hide?
So
yeah. Come on.
But the other ones are very obscure. They were just hidden in their footnotes. So she was able to get them directly from different historical societies, and
Alright. That's cool.
they'll be showing up on Patreon soon.
I'll just laugh. I'll tell you this. I know every guy I know who's named Israel. I'm sure there's some Amish guys named Israel, but every guy I know, everyone I knew who was named Israel was Puerto Rican.
That's funny.
I don't know why that is. I'm just saying. All right, man. We out. We good. Yo, man. We doing this, man.
Okay.
It's Shocktober, bro. That's it.